Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily and I like to talk about books. Today we are specifically going to be talking about the books that are on my TBR list, which is long, that I am most excited to read. That's Piper, and she's literally the best dog in the whole world. So we'll start out with kind of like the newer, more modern books, and then we'll do like classics, modern classics, older books. I just kind of roughly divided them, so I'm not sure like the exact publication years, but I have like the first 10 are recent-ish books, and then the last 6 are classics or older books that I feel will become classics, you know, that kind of fine line. So first up we have Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Alex Stern series, the first of which was Ninth House. So I'm super excited to kind of see the romance continue to progress. I have tried to stay spoiler free on this. I'm not exactly sure what it entails, but the vibes of Ninth House were very culty, dark academia, fantasy, magical, ghost vibes, and it was beautifully written. The characters were amazing. It was just such a great book that I loved so much. So I'm really excited to see where the series goes and read Hellbent. Next, we have one that came out this year, and that is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. He is the author of The Silent Patient, which is a really popular plot twisty thriller, and then The Maidens, which was his release after The Silent Patient that was more of like dark academia, thriller, Greek. Very similar in vibe to The Secret History, I would say. I loved the Greek mythology references in The Maidens, and I've heard that The Fury has Greek mythology references too. I know the Furies are prominent figures in Greek mythology, so hopefully that's what the title's referencing. The Fury is said to be a masterfully paced thriller about a reclusive ex-movie star and her famous friends whose spontaneous trip to a Greek island is upended by a murder. It says this is the tale of a murder, or maybe that's not quite true. At its heart, it's a love story, isn't it? Honestly, to me, that gives like Glass Onion from reading that synopsis, which if you are unfamiliar is an amazing movie that you should definitely watch. Next on my list is something that I added really recently and that I've just kind of gotten more excited to read the more that I've heard about it, but I haven't heard about it that much, so I'm not like 100% like, oh, I'm gonna love this. The book is The House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin Craig, and this is a young adult fantasy that features ghosts and sisters and magic and glittering balls and mystery and murder, and I just feel like that seems like a good balance of things that I love in a book. I just saw randomly someone posted a picture of it on like a bookstagram, and I looked up the synopsis and I was like, that looks pretty good. And then I saw it at Barnes & Noble when they were having that sale and bought it. And then now that it's on my shelf, it's just kind of like looking at me, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna start it soon. It is a series, it's the first in a series, so that's why I've been a little bit hesitant, because I want to read Hellbent and I want to finish the Once Upon a Broken Heart series before I start a new series, because I feel like I just don't want to be in the middle of so many series to where I'm having to constantly watch recap videos. Like I've literally already had to watch so many recap videos like for Ninth House and Once Upon a Broken Heart, because I like have been skipping around so much in series instead of just sitting down and reading a series cover to cover, which I feel like is the way to do it. It just is a commitment. Like when I read A Court of Thorns and Roses series, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I was in that universe for 2 months reading those books, and I want to give myself the space where if I love this book, I can just run through this series and be so in it, and I feel like I am really gonna love it. I sat down to edit this video and I'm like, why did I say run through? The word I'm looking for is binge, not run through. Carry on. I love ocean imagery and vibes, and this is giving ocean and fairy tales and everything. So I'm just like really, really excited for this, and because of that, I've wanted to wait to give it its proper time and attention. Next on my list is a book that I've just heard so many incredible things about that I'm literally so excited for. I believe it's a standalone, so that's something that it has going for it. The book is Piranesi by Suzanna Clark. Everything I've heard about this book has been glowing. It's Greek mythology vibes, and I love that. So it's about Piranesi, who lives in this magical house with thousands and thousands of rooms. It's basically a labyrinth, and within the labyrinth an ocean is imprisoned. Waves thunder up staircases, rooms are flooded in an instant, but Piranesi is not afraid. He understands the tides as he understands the pattern of the labyrinth itself. He lives to explore the house. There's one other person in the house, a man called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week and asks for help with research into a great and secret knowledge. Great and secret are both capitalized, like the first letter. As Piranesi explores, evidence emerges of another person, and a terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond the one which Piranesi has always known. Again, Greek mythology, ocean. Apparently it's beautifully written. I am incredibly ready for this book, and it's short and it's a standalone, and I feel like when we see that, the book is usually just like so good. When an author can put what they are trying to say in a very succinct story, it usually is very impressive to me, and I end up really loving the book. So this is one that is like at the top of my list. I'm so freaking excited to pick this up. It's kind of hard owning so many of the books that I'm excited to read, because it's like, what am I gonna read next? Like, I am chomping at the bits for the books that I have, which is a really good feeling, but it's hard to prioritize, you know? Next up, I have Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, which is the second book in the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series. I really liked Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I thought it was just so quaint, and the language in it was beautiful, and so I'm really excited to read the second one. It was just like such a cute, cozy fantasy book, and the romance was very well done and light and sprinkled in there, and I just am excited to pick the second book up. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies I just stumbled upon in a bookstore and ended up being really happy about it. That's the first and I think only cozy fantasy book I've ever read, so I enjoyed that experience. Would you consider that cozy fantasy? I feel like the stakes were like low-key kind of high, but it didn't feel stressful, if that makes sense. The next book on my list is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. This is a dystopian novel that I feel like I've talked about in like 3 videos, so I need to just read it already, but it's about a world in which people eat each other. Cannibalism. That's what that's called. These characters are living in a world in which a virus made all animal meat poisonous to humans, and the government initiated the transition. So now eating human meat, special meat, is legal. Marcos tries to stick to the numbers without considering the morality of this. And so one day he's given a gift, a live specimen of the finest quality. He's aware that any form of personal contact is forbidden. He starts to treat her like a human being, and soon he becomes tortured by what has been lost and what might still be saved. So this seems really interesting. It's actually a pretty recent release. Every time I had seen it, I had thought it was like a classic, like 1984, but I'm excited to read this and see if it feels like something that will become a classic. It just seems like it has a lot of promise as a dystopian book with an interesting exploration of themes and cool things to talk about, like cool discussions. So I may suggest this as my next book club read because I don't think anyone in my book club has read it. Next on my list is World of Wonders, which I have talked about in another video as well. The New York Times book review says, "This book demands we find the eyes to see and the heart to love such things once more. It is a very fine book indeed, truly full of wonder." And the description on the front says, "In praise of fireflies, whale sharks, and other astonishments." And I love nature and I love being outside and I love books that explore those things. So I'm excited for World of Wonder. I think it's gonna be really great. I feel like I saw a lot of people talking about it the year that it was released, and I haven't seen anything about it recently, but if you've read it, I would love to know your thoughts because it's something that I've had on my list for a really long time. It's won a lot of awards in 2020, and it's just like high time that I pick it up. Next on my list, I have Babel, which is being talked about, you know? People are talking about Babel and saying a lot of great things. I am a little nervous to get into it because it is a lengthy one, but I am doing my best to not let having a numbers reading goal make me shy away from longer books and more books with more substance, you know? I don't know why I'm losing all my words today. Babel, obviously, the Tower of Babel reference, it's about translation, and that's really interesting to me, especially as someone that grew up religious. It's a historical fiction book, and it is said to be a tonal response to The Secret History by Donna Tartt, so that seems really interesting to me. I love The Secret History. Everything by R.F. Kuang, I feel like, is so highly acclaimed. I've never read anything by her, and I'm really excited to. I've also heard great things about Yellowface, and the more that I hear about Yellowface, the more that it is starting to creep higher and higher up on my TBR as well. So I'm really excited to start reading that author and be in the know and understand what all the hype is about. Next on my list, I have Rouge by Mona Awad, who wrote Bunny, which is a book that I really loved. I read it this year and made a video about it. So Rouge, I'm like, how is this on my list? And I had, like, if you held a gun to my head, I would be like, it's about... So I'm looking it up. Rouge is a gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Can she escape her mother's fate and find a connection that is more than skin deep? So, oh, her name is Belle. Is this a Beauty and the Beast retelling? Because it has a rose on the cover too. The description on Goodreads says, Snow White meets Eyes Wide Shut in this surreal descent into the dark side of beauty, envy, grief, and the complicated love between mothers and daughters. With black humor and seductive horror, Rouge explores the cult-like nature of the beauty industry, as well as the danger of internalizing its pitiless gaze. Brimming with California sunshine and blood-red rose petals, Rouge holds up a warped mirror to our relationship with morality, our collective fixation with the surface, and the wondrous, deep longing that might lie beneath. That sounds like such a sleigh. Are you kidding me? It was another one that I just recently added to my most anticipated books after liking Bunny a lot when I read it and then liking it even more after I read it and was thinking about it. I love books that stick with you and really feel like they make an impact and are something that you're going to remember and think about for a long time. I feel like that's just one of the marks of a really good read and a really well-crafted story. So the next 7 that I'm so excited to read are a little bit older, some classics, some like modern classics. I don't know what you would consider, but it's my list. I separated it out in like 5 seconds, so don't come for me. The first one on the list is Brave New World. I never read this in school, and it's a dystopian book about technology. It is speculative fiction that is said to have enthralled and terrified readers for generations, and I know it talks about technology a lot, and I feel like that is just so incredibly relevant now with how prevalent AI is getting and how much of an impact it's having on our day-to-day life and our work life. So it's just something that I've been really wanting to read. I saw the book Leo talk about it and say good things about it, and the things that she was saying about it made me want to read it really bad. So that quickly moved to the top of my list. Again, I didn't read it in school, so if you read it in school, let me know what you thought about it. If you read it after you got out of school, let me know what you thought about it. I would love to hear it. Next on my list is probably my most anticipated classic, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is another one that I don't think that I read in school, and I just feel like there's so many references everywhere to like creator and creation and making a monster, and like there's just so many things that reference Frankenstein. The movie Poor Things I've really been wanting to see, and I know that that's like a Frankenstein retelling, I think. So this is just something that I feel like I need to read to better understand other things that I read and watch, and I'm excited to do that because I love reading things that I see referenced a lot. That's why I read American Psycho, and I really liked American Psycho, and I feel like it just gave me a better understanding. From everything to like a TikTok making fun of Patrick Bateman to like references in other books and books that have kind of followed it in tone. So this is something that I'm really excited to experience. The next book on my list is a shorter book. It's a novella called The Stranger. I, again, have not read this, and I am really excited to because it's said to grapple with existentialism, and it's considered a classic of 20th century literature. It is a story of an ordinary man unwittingly drawn into a senseless murder on a beach. And in this book, Camus explores what he termed the nakedness of man faced with the absurd. If he can do that in 159 pages, I want to read it. Next on my list is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, who wrote The Haunting of Hill House. This is said to be an unsettling novel about a perverse, isolated, and possibly murderous family and the struggle that ensues when their cousin arrives at their estate. I've heard great things about all of Shirley Jackson's work. I really enjoyed The Haunting of Hill House. The book I loved. I actually watched the show first. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen it like 8 times, and I'm just excited to read more of her work because the book The Haunting of Hill House was great, and We Have Always Lived in the Castle is something that I've heard amazing things about. Next is another short classic that again I have not read, and it is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And from what I understand, it's a book about someone trapped in a room that slowly goes crazy. It's regarded as a really important piece of feminist literature, and this is another story that is told in a very concise manner, and that just makes me excited. You know, like I've said it before and I'll say it again, but when an author can tell a great story in a really short amount of time, why say a lot of words when few do the trick? Truly. Next on my list is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. I recently read last year my first 2 Agatha Christie novels. I read A Haunting in Venice and Murder on the Orient Express. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is said to be her most controversial book, and when I was looking something up about it, the first thing I saw was someone saying like, it's her most controversial book. Go in knowing nothing. And so I don't know anything about this book, but I'm excited to read it. I'm gonna buy it and read it without reading the back, read it just like knowing nothing, because that's what someone said to do. And I believe strangers on the internet when they tell me things. Finally, we have a book that I have read. I read this when I was pretty young, and I remember really loving it. The book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm just so excited for this because I read Hello Beautiful last year or the year before, and then my best friend read Hello Beautiful this year and loved it, and so we're gonna buddy read Little Women. I feel like it's just gonna be such a great experience. I know this is such a classic and will not disappoint, so it's high up there. It's gonna happen soon, and I'm pumped. I also really like this copy. I literally searched for months at different bookstores looking for like a good floppy paperback, and this one feels like sturdy yet floppy. A lot of books that are classics, the words are just so small on the page, and I'm like, I just won't be happy reading that even if the book is great. I just need it to feel like it's a more modern book. So I was picky, but I'm excited to read it, and I think it's gonna be a really fun experience. And that is all that I have on my most anticipated list. I have like 200 something books on my TBR and 17 that I'm pumped to read. So I'm like, after I read these, am I just gonna be like, I'm done reading? Like, what else am I supposed to read? Or am I gonna be disappointed because I've been anticipating some of them for years and years? Are they gonna live up to the hype? If you've read them, let me know what you thought, but don't spoil them for the love of God, because that would make me so sad. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all so much for watching my videos, commenting, engaging with me. I am having so much fun talking about books with you all, and I'm excited to keep doing that. If you have any videos that you want to see, like in-depth reviews of a specific book on, let me know. I recently did a review on Tomorrow, and Tomorrow because someone asked for it, so that is up on my channel. Down below, you're gonna see videos that YouTube suggests for you and a video that I'm suggesting for you. So stick around for a little longer and watch another video, and have a wonderful day, week, whatever. Bye.